Today's adventure on Aaron's Adventures is we're going to be basically showing you how to do a multitude of things around your house all in one video. I've just come across that there's so many circumstances where if you have the full confidence that you can anchor anything to the wall and it's hard to the wall, like your screen TVs with your brackets, that's used a lot these days. A tumble dryer, you want to hang it onto the wall. You don't need a tradesman, you don't need a husband, you can do it yourself. It is dead easy as long as you follow some basic principles. And one of them is that I'm going to get into. We're going to put up some shelves. That was the other part of the adventure here. This is just so that you recognise me, but we don't need that anymore. We're going to be putting up some shelves in here. I'm going to show you how it is. We can put up some fantastic shelves that are really, really solid. This is mainly for storage. They're not going to look that fantastic. They might look a bit okay, but we're not worried about looks on this one. We're just looking at like strength and versatility for what it is, for cost effectiveness. All this is going to cost us absolutely minimal dollar, and it's going to have the most biggest amount of storage area very, very quickly, and you're going to be able to undo it. And we're going to show you that straight away. So there's other people out there who I just want to know how to hang a tumble dryer. I just want to hang a picture on the wall, anything at all. We're going to do that video first, this part of the video anyway, and then we'll go into the shelves, and anybody wants to get going and look at something else, go for it. Most important thing, get a breath, that helps, is your wall plug. Whenever you buy something, you buy TV wall brackets and stuff like that, you'll always find that they'll throw wall plugs in the kit with you. And they do that and they give you the most junky rubbish. I don't know if you can see that. You can tell, like, I mean, that's a good quality one. We'll be talking about that. That's the one they throw in the pack. Now the reason why they throw junk in there is because they have to tick the box that yes, we supplied everything for you to do the job. But they're going to throw absolute trash. Like, I just throw them in. I've never once ever used them. They're absolute rubbish. A good quality one is a green one, and there's a mediocre one. We even have mediocre quality ones. I go for blue wall plugs, which is the biggest one, pretty much 99 times out of 100. I love overkill. If you're going to put one in, just get good at one size. Put everything in with blue. The bigger the better. But there are some instances where, is that a word? Instances? That'll do it. Where you have a small screw and you've got no choice, you need a smaller screw for whatever application, like a tiny bit, I don't know. You do sometimes need a green, but I always just generally go for the blue. Medium quality one is where you've got square cut at either end. See, it's like dead square, and you can actually feel it. It actually feels like really hard, rigid plastic. You don't want them either. You want these ones. They've actually got a little bit of squeeziness to them, just if that makes sense. There's like a little bit of jelliness to them, a little bit of a bit soft. That's why, like, if you ever had one of these sitting in the sun for years and years and years, it's probably gone no good. They're meant to be put inside a wall, not left out in the sun. But you can tell that they are a good one because they've always got the chamfer at one end. That's the end that goes into the wall. Your flush end sticks out. If you're like trying to save money and you want to have some in your kit, always just go for the longer ones because you can always cut them shorter. Though that you can get. Going to make a big mess here. I'll do this quick. I'm just trying to save you guys time, right? You can get different lengths, different sizes. In this instance, probably that's all we're going to need. We could go, like, if you're doing a tumble dryer on a wall, if you get like a TV bracket and the TV's quite heavy, and you know you're going to be able to swing that TV out. You've got to imagine the weight of that television set hanging out on an arm on this bracket and just pulling on those things like crazy. You're going to want yourself a big one. What length is that? I forget. 50 mil, okay, you want at least 50 mil, that'll hold. You get 4 of those suckers on the wall that's anchored really, really well, it'll hold anything. In this case, even to do the test in the end, and when we do these shelves, I'm actually going to get up on the shelf myself, and I'm a fat 80 kilos, and I'm going to lay on it. I'm that confident that with just 2 brackets, we're going to have the size of, probably bigger than a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet of panel, the standard sheet of panel. The area of shelving we're going to have is slightly bigger than that, and we're going to hold the whole thing up with just 2 brackets. I think these were like $11 each. I think they're 400 by 350, and just 2 of them. And I'll show you how you can do that by following these principles, because as long as you get these anchored into the wall really well, you don't need so many of those, especially when you've got the walls in the corners as a point of, what I'm saying is, if you've got a shelf that's hanging out the open and it doesn't join to any corners, okay, you're going to need the extra bracket. But the corners themselves become the bracket, so you don't need them so much. So we're going to go in this particular room, we're going to go end to end, which is going to be a great advantage because we can also then extend these shelves around later on and extend to them and utilise the strength of the existing shelves to then continue on and make more of them if we want to. The beautiful part is we're going to also be able to remove them. If you wanted to move house and you want to get rid of it all, or if you're renting and you shouldn't really have done that, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you how you can do this, and in the end you can just putty over the whole lot, paint the wall, and you would never know that the shelves were even there. So let's just get straight on to basically doing a drilling of a wall. You will need a drill. It's a bit like doing archery. You can get, any good archer will tell you that they can have an ordinary bow as long as they've got a really good arrow. If you've got a poor quality arrow, it doesn't matter how expensive your bow is. And it's the same with this sort of principle. It doesn't matter about the drill, as long as it's got hammer facility, variable speed would be better to be able to go slow and increase the speed. That is definitely a plus. And forward and reverse is definitely a bonus, but you'll probably find these days, most of the time they come with it. Even just a cheaper Zitto or something like that, doesn't matter, as long as you've got a good quality bit. And I'm going to show you both. This here is an example. I don't know if you can see it, doesn't matter. That's a bad one. You see a little bit of paint there, it's just like some cheap Chinese, no offense to the Chinese people, but you know, you get paid very much anyway, but this is junk. You can see it, it's just some replica of, like, you know, for $2 it's like, here we go, here, have a drill bit. Honestly, I throw it out the bin, I wouldn't use it. I think I just got it as an example of what don't to do. Same here with that. I don't know if you're able to zoom in on that one. You can see that. It's just, you can just tell by the way it's made. It's the little bit of tungsten bit at the end is the most important bit. Now this is a good quality one. Look at them side by side. You can clearly see the masonry section of that bit of drill bit embedded in there. You can see that it's straight, square, rigid. I've actually seen in some kits these cheap Chinese ones, and that bit there is sitting on an angle. It's obviously just pumped through the production line and sent out the door anyway. You're not going to get a lot of luck with these. With a good quality one of these, I'm also going to show you in another video how to drill in a bathroom through ceramic and porcelain tiles correctly. Yeah, a good quality bit. So that the drill doesn't matter as much. I mean, the better the quality, any drill, or the, what do you call it, power drill, the power tool of any kind, the more money you spend, because the better you're going to get it. It doesn't matter in this case. We're going for cheapest chips. So the right one to choose, let's pick your diameter. When you buy you get these kits that you see in the shop. They give you like a masonry bit and a wall plug or something in the kit. Often they're wrong, and what they do is they give you the exact same size masonry bit as the wall plug, and that's where people go wrong. We're going to be going into, this is a double wall brick. It just happens to be an external wall. It doesn't matter if it's just a single internal, it's the same principle. We've got internal wall bricks behind, render, and then plaster over the top. So you've got three substances that we're going through. If it's a dry wall, that's a different video again. But in doing this, it can often depend on the mix, and you can and how you get lucky. Whether you go into the brick, I think I'll show at the end of the video. We'll just add in a little cross section of a brick and what's actually going on the inside where we're going to drill this. But you want to go smaller. There's a long story short, is what I'm trying to say. Where's the right size? I think that's it there. I don't know if you can see that. You can zoom in on that one. You can see that the drill bit is fractionally smaller than the actual wall plug. Because it can always make a hole bigger, you can't make it smaller again. And a lot of people fail this if they drill it too big and you put it in, and if this thing's spinning around, it's useless to you. You want a really nice tight hammered fit in this. We're going to be putting a piece of timber across here for the shelves like this. So for the first drill, I'm just going to stick it somewhere in behind there. It doesn't matter where it goes because we're not going to see it in the end anyway. So once we've determined where we want our screw to be, then that will say there for now. It doesn't matter when or where that goes. Where were we? This one here. I'm trying to as quick as I can. If that's where it's going to go, two simple things you need to remember when putting it in. Don't be frightened of the thing. We'll make sure we're on hammer setting, of course. You just watch yourself up and down that way. You can tend to find, because it's maybe a little bit heavy and that, you can tend to like droop it a bit, and you're in trouble there. And watch your angle that direction. So often I'll just get find out where I want to go first, and I'm just going to. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. I've just made a little mark as to where I want it to go. Now I concern myself that as to the angle of the drill. And that's it. I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure at the back, not so you have to force the thing in there, just let it bounce. What's happening here is that the drill is rubbing on a ball bearing on a piece of metal that's causing it to vibrate just fractionally back and forwards. Let it do it. By pushing it in too hard, you're taking away that hammering effect. So just more gentle is often better. Oh, one tip, when I back off this and do this, before you start drilling anywhere, make sure you're drilling in a good spot. Like power points, if you just put it just like where you've got like a power point, do not drill anywhere above that all the way through to the ceiling. More than likely that's how that's what they've done, they've chased the power there. Watch out for that. Also watch out for gas fittings, anything else like that. Again, we've got another power point over here because this there's only got the two thing in the whole room here, but anyway, again I'd say that we go straight up from there on that, so I'm not going to drill right here above that point, and same with that one again. That's the two things we have to watch. You also watch if you've got like a gas outlet, because you might have a heater or something like that. Again, look out for that. 99 times out of 100 they have chased it, they've gone for the most shortest route possible for the electricity. He's going to zip it straight up the line. It's also possible though that they could have run the power down the wall onto one of these sides and then chased it across from that power point and then say to that power point. So then between these, because I notice these two power points in this case are the same height, so I would never drill anywhere in here because it's possible that the power runs through there. You've got devices that you can find on the market these days that can find that for you and all that stuff, but I'm going with it to anyone who's on a budget. Just go on that principle, on that basis of just watch out for that, and you're pretty much right most of the time. In this case, we've got nothing under there, nothing there. I'd say we're fine to go. Now that's suddenly jolted. You would have noticed that I was drilling and it suddenly jolted. What a brick has is cavities inside. You'll either happen to get it between the mortar, between the bricks, or you'll get it within the wall of a brick, so you'll end up going through the plaster, through the render, and then in right the way through the brick, and you're constantly drilling through some kind of substance of the clay of the brick. Or it'll end up sometimes dipping out like it did then. I'm saying that there's a cavity inside, I'm going through the wall of the brick about that thick, and suddenly there's a cavity there, and I've come across the edge of the cavity, and it's just slipped through. So just go easy on that one again, that's why you don't press too hard. Go gentle. Through the next stage. So double wall brick, as I'll show at the end, has two cavities. You heard me, I went through one, dropped out again, I'm now in through to the second. So I don't really, in this case, need to drill any further than that, because I know what it looks like inside it, it's not going to make any difference, but because I want to allow for the possibility of what comes next is how to hide it. So we're going to go as deep as we can. That's gone too much, so I hit that, that's my fault. It doesn't matter if you're overzealous about it, but if this is an external wall, so there's a cavity in there and then there's another row of bricks. If it was an internal wall, I'd be in trouble, because that could have possibly made a mark on the other side of the wall there, because I went too deep. So be just aware of it. Easy way to check is just often get your drill bit, hold it up alongside an actual wall between two rooms, and just double check that you're not going to go through it. Nothing worse than, someone's taken a shower and you've just gone, chucked a Mr. Bean and gone right through the wall. Now remember, we've had the bit is smaller. I'm going to put this full 50mm one in there, just as an overkill, and basically as an example of I'm hoping it'll get jammed, so I can show you what happens in that circumstance. The other thing is a vacuum cleaner is fantastic. If you've got a second person alongside, I've actually put stuff into walls where there's been a computer running underneath it and not a drop of dust or anything got into it, by simply, you have to hopefully edit down the sound of this one, holding that underneath it as the person drills, and that'll get 100% of your dust. Just hold it underneath it with that sort of a nozzle, just hold it there and get your friend to drill it, and literally you could have a desk of like a stuffer under there, you don't even need to cover it as long as you've got that vacuum cleaner going as you go. But I only had two hands. So we're going to get all the dust out of it. You've got to do that. You don't want any of that, the loose debris that's in there, jammed in there as we go to poke it in. You want it clean. So we know we've sucked any loose debris in that. Even if you don't have a vacuum cleaner, Get a straw. You really want a straw, otherwise you're going to cop it in the face. I've done it, it's really funny. I could even use one of these if I had one long enough. But if you go off to the side with a straw and then just blow it like you would blow across the top of a bottle, you'll actually blow all that dust out of there. Obviously don't stick your face in front of it. You can if you want. It's kind of funny for the onlookers and the people that get to watch this stuff up. Now to put it in, again, chamfered side in there first. Tap that in there. Obviously we don't want to then go whacking and damaging the wall around it. So as we get close to it, see, I just did that, but it doesn't have a cover out anyway. Get a piece of wood, ribbon on edge, and just tap it with just a scrap piece of timber. Flatten it on that, and then you know that it's flush and level, and you haven't accidentally slipped and gone and whacked the wall, which I just did just a second ago. So I'm glad I stuffed up. There you go. Don't do that. Use a piece of wood instead. That's flushed it in there. Now the reason why I wanted to go beyond the drill bit and make sure you clean everything out is that if you want to be able to remove any of this, you then just get a chunk of dowel, get the wall plug, tap it further in, like that. Get yourself some putty. This is pre-mixed putty. I don't recommend pre-mixed putty. I recommend get the powder, mix it yourself at the time. But this is all we had lying around. It doesn't matter, stick it on like that, that's it, done. Wipe that over, let that set. You could do it again if you want to build it up just to check it, paint the wall, you'd never know it was there. So we just fully installed the wall plug and just gotten rid of it, all just in, how much time did that take? It took longer because I'm talking too much. So that's how to hang anything. That wall plug, that job that I just did, what the heck, let's do it again. Let's stick one here. Just a little tap to get it started. I double check my up and down. I double check my left and right. I'm just using my elbow just to brace against the wall a bit. A little amount of pressure. Try not to let that wobble too much. The reason why I've gone for a drill bit that is quite small, I don't know how you're going for it looking, like I said, for closeness, it's about like 85 to 90% of the bit. I haven't got the size, but it doesn't matter because it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing the green plugs, same principle. Get yourself the smaller one, make sure that it is not the same size. Now that would be it for that. You can see that there, but that drill would be right for that because you can check it. I can see that the green is larger than the actual masonry bit because it's going to rattle anyway. And it all just depends on how soft a material your brick is, and that can vary from place to place and where you are, from brick to brick, how good a job the brick you did, and that can vary. So I can't really give an exact answer on what size drill bit are you using. It can depend. I once did a house, it was a hotel that was 95 years old, and the plaster was so thick and so old that it started out like a little 1/4 inch hole, and it ended up in the end I got about a 3/4 inch piece of dowel, and I had to smack it into the wall and then screw into the piece of dowel because it just turned to crumbs, it just turned to powder. Even on the smallest bit it would just vibrate and it would just disintegrate, so I couldn't really get anything good to grip to. But the harder that it is, the closer you can get away with having your actual masonry bit to the size of your wall plug. So long story short, go for blue wherever possible. There's blue again. Hang on, I'll just do the blow thing. Blow, not suck. Makes sense, wouldn't it? And hammer that. Make sure the chamfered end goes in first. Done. What can happen is if it gets jammed and you've got a little bit left sticking out, doesn't matter, which is why I always try and go deeper. I just tend to get like a Stanley a blade, like some get a pair of pliers, but I usually just use my fingers and I just push it on that and just run it backwards and forwards, and you can then slice that off, you know, level with the paint, just cut it out. So it's always better to have like a pack of big ones because you can always cut them, make them smaller, not the other way around. So that's it. That is strong enough now. We're going to cheap and use a cordless drill. If you don't have a cordless drill, doesn't matter, as long as you've got a cheap ass $2 regular drill, it'll do the trick. So that's an 8 gauge, a 10 gauge. This will take a 10 gauge, and crikey, that will hold anything if we shove a 10 gauge in there. I swear that'll hold my body weight. That 10 gauge, I could stick a clamp or some kind of hook or something on that right now, and I can hang off with my phone. I weigh 80 kilos. If you ever watch my Get Pork videos, you know that I weigh a fat 80 kilos. But it doesn't matter. That will hold, no joke, anything. 10 gauge there with the blue screws. If you had 4 of those, you could have a TV bracket with some serious weight hanging off that. Tumble dryer. Tumble dryers aren't that heavy really. It's the clothes when they're wet put in it. That's what usually weighs a bit of juice, is that one. And we actually know that even behind that little putty there, there's actually a screw in that one. That's an 8 gauge. Today for this job with a set of shelving, even though I know this is going to take some serious weight, probably not going to use the 10 gauge, I'm just going to use the 8, because we can spread it across, all the weight's being distributed in a large area on 2 screws against the wall. I mean, that's strong enough as it is. You could hang a fair whack of weight off that. They're not that big of shelves. I mean, what are you going to be putting on it if you're not sticking a great big V8 engine on there or anything? Just regular clothes and domestic items. It's just a regular indoor domestic shelf. So this video is a bit more for the ladies. If you want to, if there's something I have not explained, or if there's something you want to do around the house that you're not sure how to do it, comment below. Let me know. There's very little I don't know about the building industry, from the surveying of a block right through to the true shellac finish of a grandfather clock. Like in this place that we're in right now, needs a lot of renovating, so there's probably, yeah, the cameraman's laughing because he knows there's any bit of renovation you want to do to your house, this house needs it, so we could do a video on just about anything, but today we need storage. So we're now going to do these shelves. Basically, first of all, preparation. So if you just want to hang anything, you can move on. If you want to stick around, that's great. I will never tell you to subscribe. You'll figure that out one for yourself if you want to. Between walls, I'm going to assume they're going to be doing this by yourself, and you haven't got someone else to help you, because my camera dude, thank goodness we've got a cameraman and we've got a clapper, but the actual building I'll do myself so that you can do it yourself, because it is hard to get help sometimes. All I did, I pushed it to the wall, because obviously it's too long. I can't measure this properly. Yeah, I could go across the ground and whatnot, but I don't trust that, because walls aren't always perfectly straight. They can veer out a little bit when the plasterer does his job, and that they're not always 100% right. I wanted my first shelf about here somewhere. I measured that as to wire, like a standard 400mm box, and above that 450mm, because most standard crates seem to fit that, so I chose that. But to get the size, basically it doesn't matter where you go, in the centre, push it against the wall, pick something. I think I just must have picked 1977mm. I just put a mark and just measured it. Doesn't matter at all, because once you go to this side, you can then line it up to that line, and then I just worked out then the other half, add the two together, and then we got ourselves the internal distance, and this happens to be 3,475mm. It'll be whatever it is for your build. I want with 3 sets of shelves in a sense, because we're going to use 2 brackets. Remember, as I said, I think about $11, $10.80 each, so it's under 22 bucks. So one's going to be there, the other's going to be there. We will not need any more shelves, even though we've got 2 tiers. Is that the right word for shelves? No, tiers are... What's the one in a library, in a book? I have to ask a librarian. What's his cabinet level in a bookshelf? Does it have a special name? Doesn't matter. Comment below if you know the answer to that one. So we just 2 of these brackets. As I said, we're trying to make this as minimal cost as possible. Get this right. To brace the next set of shelves above it, we're going to be using some of this board. Is that what you use to light test the room?
Oh yeah, definitely. No, it's wide enough.
Oh, okay. Well, it had 2 uses. It can become a shelf, and it can be a light testing device for camera crew. So have I got it too big? No, I haven't. That's right, because I've allowed for the shelf to go above. This happens to be that's 400 between there and there. I've allowed an extra 16mm, as you can probably see, above that line, because there's dust everywhere. Thank goodness we've got a vacuum cleaner. Because the shelving we're going to stick on the top, which will sit on top of that, is 16mm. Because I just happen to choose this pretty cheap stuff. You can use whatever you want, whatever you can get a hold of. But this worked out the cheapest effect, because it already had the melamine on the edge, and the rest of the sides you're not going to see. and it didn't need to cut it too much, so it worked out pretty good. So 16mm, that's what gave it that side. That then will hold up the upper shelf, so we really just have to brace from the bottom. Now, so we want 3 sections. So I worked it out, the 16mm is what we want. We've got 2 of them, so make sure you take away your 32mm. I say that because you might have a 19mm or 3/4 inch is a very common size. So you may go for that, so you obviously have to deduct accordingly. So just take some time to plan it out. It'll speed up your whole job. Some people like to use computers and that, I just like pen and paper. They never crash and bits of paper don't get viruses or anything. The other thing is my material. We're just going to go for that cheap ass 42x19 pine, radiator pine. It is really cost effective. You don't have to go for like your top furniture grade, because you can go to like a hardware store and just get your medium grade or even your structural grade and hand select your timber. Just close one eye and just look down it and just make sure that it's straight. This is actually recycled wood, it's not very straight, but it's not going to matter in this circumstance. But it's really cheap. Wherever you can get the most cheapest material, you can use like red Moranti, but that is rainforest timber. This is no better anyway, because this is actually what we call plantation timber, which is not very good for the environment either, so you've got a damn dollar away. Anyway, so we're going to use that. That's our size. It gives us our pre-cut pieces. So there's going to be basically 3 sections like that, but the middle bit I have not cut to length. I don't know if you can see this. And to that bit, you can notice I've left 4 pieces. 2 for the bottom, 2 for the top, and I've left them longer. We're going to cut that to size because I always go on the principle of it is what it is. Sometimes you can calculate things out and you go and pre-make it. When you go to stick it in, it's like, oh, it's like a millimetre too big and it doesn't go in, or oh, it's a millimetre too small and it's leaving a wobbly gap. So we're going to install the side shelves first, and then we're going to insert the middle shelf as to whatever the distance is, which it could be right, but I always just like to, you can't just glue a piece of wood on the end of a bit of a wood. It's always the way. All this mathematics I actually just did in my head, but I thought I'd pretend to show it to you so that it looks like I know what I'm doing. So I just divided it up, 3 sections, and that's what we ended up with. I think it's 1147, which we've already done for these bits. So next bit is we're just going to make up 2 bits of framework and we're going to install it into the corner. Because there's no weight on it yet, we won't even need to install these brackets even yet. We can stick them off on there afterwards. That's bring it to the corner. They should hold themselves up anyway. It's just going to be a square frame. How we're going to do that is that this isn't really a milk crate. It's actually illegal to have milk crates. So we actually 3D printed this ourselves to look like a milk crate. Even though it's not actually a milk crate. I think if you actually to charge everyone in Australia who has a milk crate for having a milk crate, you pretty much destroy the Australian economy. Naturally, the easiest way to cut it is with a circular saw or some form of power tool, but you don't have to have one of these to do that. A simple tenon saw would be fine. Any saw will do. Continuing, this is like it's worth about $2. I think I picked it up somewhere, some stage because I just needed something to throw about. And the great thing about a cheap saw though, it comes with a square at the end, so you can mark off your distance with that. That's all you need to do. Brace it if you're in a hurry. I can sometimes use my foot to brace it at the back. It would be lazy. And then just follow the line. Get to the end, careful not to snap it off, and just bring it around to take the corner off it. You want to do that, you don't really want to drag it that way across the end, because what happens, you'll just snap that off and then end up with a end up cracking all that bit there off. This is not a crappy piece, but we're going to paint over the top of it anyway. It's just to hold up the shelf, you'll never see it, it doesn't matter. So you don't have to have one of these. It's $2. You can still do this. Alright, so just going to quickly show you how to do cutting this type of board. We need to cut 2 sections out of this to give us our uprights for the 2 sets of shelves, and this is basically what is saving us from having to buy any more brackets and having to drill any more holes. You'll see what I mean when it's done. But we want to cut through this and And what it can do, the saw like this can actually cause tearing across the board. What you want is a nice, neat, finished edge like that. To get that with this sort of saw, it's got this bit of scrap here, there's a bit of scrap, 3mm MDF. These are for painting on and stuff. Doesn't matter. Stick that underneath. I'm definitely going to want to do this because I have to flip this around to do 2 cuts. I want that side, so I'm going to just check it with the... This thing does have a laser guider, but I find the laser not too accurate. I don't trust it. I like to actually see it. So I'll look at the tips of the tungsten. I'm going to get my mark just there. If anything, I'd rather it was a fraction too big than too small. And we sand it. So this should then prevent the tearing around the other side. It didn't prevent the tearing too well this side, but it won't matter because as the boards are going against that, you're not going to see it. I really just wanted to demonstrate this just to give you the idea. That didn't do too good a job in the beginning. You can see what's happened there is torn open. Why the board didn't really... I didn't have it flat, that's my fault. The board was curved and it was not flat against it. That's why it did it. I could see that now underneath. That's my bad. Lesson learned. Just make sure that slots into the same groove. You see there it does. I'll push it down hard this time so that doesn't do it again. Thanks to my octopus arms, we saved that one. That one should be a little bit better. That's much better. That's how it should come out, and you make the board take the hit. You didn't put that there, it will just like there, it will do that tearing. But I say in this circumstance we're okay because we only see this front edge and we got boards that's going to go against it, so we're not going to see that bit. We're only going to see this middle section, so we're fine. But we'll do that again. So basically that's it. That's how to cut a piece of panel. Even if you're just using the hand saw and you want to do it, I'd still something like that underneath it will help you with that tearing problem as well. Even a piece on the top if you could, but it makes it a bit awkward to see where your cut mark goes, and having a bit more supporting area might help too. But to get things the same size, which is kind of important, one way to do it is you go off the actual board, go same for same. Now I'm going to actually use this edge here because that's the edge I just cut. As you can see, I butchered that a bit, and we're going to have some waste anyway. So I'll go back to this factory edge. Oh, you won't see that anyway. That's okay. We'll live with it. That one to there. As you can see, these are level. Press that against there. I can feel it. That's against there. I'll move these together, and I know that goes against there. I know that is exactly the same as that board there. But without even making a measurement, I know those two are going to be exactly the same as each other. But we're going to have to stick this underneath it. So deal with that in a minute. But that's how you cut that. With a bit of that stuff. So let's move on to the next bit. I haven't even bothered to sand it down or anything like that because I just don't care. Like in this set of shelves that we're doing, they're just rough storage shelves and nothing to look fantastic. We're going to paint them up anyway because of all reasons that we've stated before. Always paint your material before you put it together. It's a huge mistake that a lot of people make when they make picket fences. They're so keen to get the job finished that they build the picket fence and then they paint the picket fence after. And that is completely and utterly wrong. You've just killed your picket fence before you've even finished it. The reason is because once you've joined two bits of timber together like that, you now go and paint around it like that, and paint your fence as you do, you're left with a gap underneath, like that, in there, that there's no paint. Moisture and water and the rain and everything will get into your picket fence in here and in here, soak into the wood and destroy it. Most of the time, and especially the one thing people don't do when they make a picket fence, because at the bottom is they don't paint the bottom edge of the pickets, which is really important because again, the rain will then run down, it'll soak up into the end grain and just split the wood and destroy it, and you'll just... What could have lasted for decades now ain't going to last you more than 5 years. So paint your pickets for your picket fence first,
And then when you've done the job, you will scratch it up and mark it up as you're building it. Doesn't matter. You just do a big touch-up job at the very end, which of course is quick and easy to do because you've already done the bulk of it. But the most important when you're making a picket fence is, paint it first and do these end grains. You must seal that up. The end grain is most important just to seal it up. And it's a lot easier rather than paint all this inside the room after I've built the shelves. Again, just top it up. It's much easier just to do it like this. What we're going to do is do the whole face and then just turn them all up on edge together like that. And put them all together that way. I only got a tiny sample tub with me at the moment. I'm going to need a bit more than that. I'll just quickly grab that so I can just show you. I just got this cheap roller, honestly $2. I'm deliberately using it, as you notice, everything cheap as possible. Save yourself some money. If you want to go more fancy and you want to buy fancy stuff and get fancier wood, you want to make it more decorative and paint different colours and go tutti frutti, you can do whatever you like. But the objective of this video is just cost effective, quick and easy. You can do it. You don't need to get a tradesman in. I'm trying to wait for your husband to go and get off his butt and go and do it and build some shelves that you've been wanting to get done for ages. Do it yourself. Do it all in one hit. This paint won't take too long to dry. Give it a few coats on the side and flip it over. Do the whole lot on the other. Anyway, you go there, you can pick up all this sort of wood to do this job I'm doing. I think it worked out about $68 in total. If you get your lengths correct, like what I mean is, timber is sold in 1 foot increments because it's all old school stuff. It's all imperial. But we have the metric conversion, of course, being is 1.2, 1.5, 1.8, 2.1, 2.4. It goes up like that. So if you've got like a small bit you need and a large bit, add the two together and get the most nearest. So these just under 1.2 meters. But we also needed the small section. So to buy 1.8s. Maybe even 1.5, depending what your shelf you're doing. You might want a smaller shelf than 1.5s, and then you get your long bit and your short bit out of the one piece, and it costs you less money, less wastage. Just calculate up the minimal amount of wastage. But even the bits that join together, so I want it coated all around. So you'll find anything you do will just last so much longer if every last bit of the wood is painted. I once built a pergola that I painted every single panel and piece before, 3 coats before I even assembled the whole thing. So even every stretch of that pergola I put together, there's every bit that crosses over, there's paint everywhere. It's completely sealed. 5 years ago I did it. It still looks fantastic. It hasn't moved. No cracking, nothing. It's just weird as if you don't paint it beforehand, and like I said, that because of that gap that you leave when they're joined together, suddenly you've just wiped off about 10 years of life, especially if it's outdoors, and especially if you're in a bathroom. If you're doing like you're in a bathroom, then you want to, you're in a bathroom, then yeah, you definitely want to seal everything up. You don't want gaps because just moisture in a bathroom it just gets everywhere. You don't think so it does, but it just does. All we're going to do, screw them together. One of the things I think I'll include it in my outdoor video when I actually go to do it, is I think I stress paint the end grains of anything and everything that you do, especially a picket fence. I see this massive mistake that everybody makes is they build a picket fence and then they paint it. Absolutely the most stupidest thing you could do, no offense, but like you've got raw pieces of wood and you've overlapped them like this and you paint all around it, and suddenly you've got a section in there and a section in there that isn't painted. And stuck in there, and moisture gets behind there, especially the bottom of the picket fence. The water runs down, gets up into the bottom of the fence, which hasn't been painted properly, gets trapped in there, splits the wood, and it literally like halves the life of your job. You would have been better off actually not painting it. You would have probably got more life out of it because it could dry quicker. But with anything that I do, like I just use some cheap paint. I think it's like $8 for the tub. That was it. We just painted the end grain. That even though when it's joined up, there's even paint within the joint. Any moisture of, if they put a coffee on there and it gets spilt, gets in there, nothing's going to happen to this. That's why you can get away with using the most cheapest wood possible. If you want the wood grain look though, of course, you might want to spend a bit more effort, get some nice timber. You could put Tasmanian oak and put a clear lacquer. It would look fantastic. But today we're going super cheap. So
I just got the cheapest wood I could get, the cheapest thing, cheapest paint I could get. They're not all the same size, but I said this is recycled timber. At least when you go to the shops, you won't have that problem. Yours will be the same size. This wood I used for a job ages ago that I pulled apart. I've cheated to try and save money, and I haven't spent any money, but it is slightly different. That doesn't matter. We can get away with this as long as we keep one side flush. The other side can stick out down the bottom. I'm not going to care. We could even cap it across with something across the front to make it look nice. We can cheat later. So we're just going to make sure that it's lined up on one side. But we don't need to have that there just yet because we've got a drill. There we go. You can use the same cheap $30 drill that you were using before. One way to double check that you've got it in the middle, just put the piece of wood that it's going through into like that, and then you can just, or even halfway across like that, and that way then I know that right about there is my halfway point. Okay, done. And then I don't need that to do the second one. See you later. Because we can just guess. I'm not even going to measure it, I'm just going to guess about there. I don't know if that's very helpful saying I'm not going to measure it, I'm just trying to show how easy it is. If I can do it, you can do it. So now that we've done that, I do that first because it makes this a bit easier, because luckily that's the right size, otherwise I would have to put another support under it. Yeah, there we go. I want that about there. Once I've drilled one of them, I'm not going to drill the second one until I put a screw in, because if you bump it, move it, and suddenly you've got two of these shafts that you just drilled down there, that there is now in the wrong spot to the other. It's just easier that now that we've got one done, whack a screw in there. If you got a particular timber, that don't have it too long, because otherwise you can actually split the wood. But to ensure that you don't split it, because we've only gone through it that depth, I can then actually just quickly go a bit deeper again. Line the excess. One way to line up your screws, I'll show you a quick trick. Just wind it through gently until I can just feel it come through. Obviously don't drill it into your finger, but I can just feel it scratching up. There you go, you can see that. I can just feel my finger sticking through. That way then when I put that onto there, you can actually feel it dig into the hole. That helps keep you lined up. I don't have to tighten it right up, not necessary, because I want to be able to move it and make sure that I get that now flush, because like again, it is what it is. Wherever that is now, it is there. You're not going to suddenly change it. So you would have made sure that you got that flush and level in the first place, one step at a time. I'm just going to support up my finger just underneath, double check that that's just smooth. Again, I do have a workshop and everything, but I'm deliberately doing this just on the carpet, on the ground here, just on a cheap bench, to show that you don't have to have fancy things to do this sort of shelving or do this job. Not in the slightest, super cheap, it can be done. Having a little hammered ratchet drill like this is handy, but you can screw it in there. If you are finding that it's too hard for your wrist, if you're doing it by hand, you may want to then increase the diameter of that drill bit slightly. The way to check the diameter of a drill bit for what you're doing is, in this case, we're using one of these screws here. I think that's like an 8 gauge, looks like about 50 mil long again. Bang, we know these are 50 mil. There you go, so 50 mil screw. Wonderful. Look at the shaft where so you got the thread, ignore the thread. Look at the solid bit of steel, not the shaft bit size here so much, but that shaft size there. The thickness of that, ideal is what you want that, and you'll get the best possible bond that it's going through into. But in this case, I'm not going to wall plugs, they'll go into timber, pardon me. Or rephrase, I was about to give different advice there, but that's it's different when it goes into that as opposed to the timber. In this case, yes, we want to make sure that that thread bites into the wood. So when you're paying attention to what drill bit, you don't have to be an expert, you don't even have to know the measurements, it doesn't matter. I just sort of sight down it, I hold the drill bit just in front of it and just look down through, and just so that the bits of thread are just sticking out the sides. If you're finding it's too tight, okay, increase to the next size, re-bore it out, and you'll find it go in. But you really want to make sure you've got it as tight as it can be, just to the size that it just needs to be. And there you go. We're going to paint over that later. There's a lot of different things you can do, like to disguise the screws later on, but we'll get into that at the end of it. As I said, cost effectiveness right now. What some people may have to do is to come more directly up and down and look at it. I've been drilling all my life, so I'm pretty good at it, but just watch your left and right, and just watch your back and forward. Just pay attention, take it a bit more easy, just a bit more care to make sure that you've got that, vertical action happening, that you're not on a back angle like that. Sometimes if you've got someone with you, just to have them watch you from another angle, they can let you know that if you're starting to veer off and twist, and then they can let you know, well, just back off and do it again. And because once you're on an angle, it's a bit late, and it makes the rest of this, the straighter you can drill this, the better the rest of the structure will be, because we're trying to make a square here. It is kind of forgiving. It's like, what I'm trying to show you is really, really simple. It's not that hard. We just wipe away the bits at the end. You see I've just punched through a bit of speed there. Yeah, you get these bits of timber left over. Just get your fingers, just make sure you rub that away, because otherwise when you go to push that in there, those chunks of wood at the left in there can actually cause a gap to form. So it's just better if that's clear. So I just give them a quick rub with my fingers. I forgot to mention that. You tend to do it out of habit. Once you've drilled it 1,000 times, you just automatically do it and you don't even realise you do it. That'd be perfect. All I'm doing is just to line across to the next hole. As you can see, I'm just sitting the drill bit across the hole that is already there, and then when I get to where I think it's lifted up, I've just given them the bits of wood 2 coats. And some bits will look like I've only given it 1. Just something, It obviously will scarf it, scrape it up and make a mess of it in the process. Doesn't matter. When it's all together and done, you can then just gently go over with a little pot of paint. I can show you how you can do that. I'll tell you right now. You get like a little touch-up bit of paint like this, and you can actually do it with a bit of hot glue or something like that. Get a round bit of cardboard and just cut like a quarter. Imagine just cut even like an old pizza box or something like that. Just cut that underneath, cut a corner out of it, so you can grab it like that and hold the paint. But the rest of it is all a piece of cardboard that acts as a drop sheet. Because you only just need to dip a tiny bit of brush and just go around there and touch it up. And if you did slip or bit dribbles, or you did, as long as you carry that underneath it as you go, you're pretty much guaranteed you're not going to make a mess. You can do it really quick and easy without worrying about drop sheets and things. But if your carpet is worth about $3 million or something like that, okay, put a drop sheet down, what the heck. But yeah, it's a good little simple trick, just to screw a bit of cardboard to the base of it, just in a curve around the thing. Remember just to cut that wedge out for your arm, and it just saves you a lot of time and effort. Zip around, do it, touch it up. You only need then 1 coat. You can go over the screws and everything like that, or whatever it is that you choose to be doing at the time, and then just finish it off. But at least then you know that between the joints that you've got paint in there, that moisture, if it gets in there, you put a coffee on the shelf and you spill, it doesn't matter. It's never going to get into that wood. It's going to live forever. This thing will live for 100 years. But it's such a crappy looking set of shelves, so I hope it doesn't live for 100 years. I hope I can prove it with something a bit better than this. But again, just wipe that clear, make sure that there's no debris left on the base. Other sides are not being interfered with. Again, one thing to check, the side that I'm going to level off, I'm going to keep one side level. This piece of wood's the right size, I wish I'd go with the right one, but this one isn't. Notice that I've got this side level and flush, that side sticking out, doesn't matter, as long as when I do the other side, that this side is the level face. Make sure that you make this side the level face as well. You can do that accidentally when you flip it around and you don't think about it,
and suddenly afterwards you go to put it together, it's like, oh whoops. But in this case, this must have come from the same bit, which is great. So we're just going to check it. Just going to run my finger across there, push it down. It looks pretty square. I've just got it now just resting on the, it's not even resting on the bench top as you can see now, it's just sitting on the carpet as it is. If it isn't square and doesn't look right, you just know just by looking at it. If it doesn't look right, double check what's going on. But you should be able to look down at it and it should look naturally square. And you pretty much got it. You can get tools like squares and stuff to hold up against it and things. You don't need it. Just use your common sense. If you look down at it, you can see like, obviously that's wrong. That's obviously wrong. You know that's obviously wrong. You just look at it, put it on that, straight up and down. It looks neat. Now so I'm just putting a little bit, just tiny bit of pressure there. Nice. Okay, I'm going to drill this side first. Alright, once I've just marked it, touched it, I'm just going to double check it. No, I'm not going to drill all the way through. Now just check it. Yep, that's still flush there, still flush there. I like that. It's a good corner. Now I know I can lift that away and then just finish this off. It's easier to just manipulate these two things than it is to have that rocking around. So that the sooner I get that separated from that, the sooner I can guarantee a nice straight plunge. Depending on your drill, I could go through ways of techniques of drilling, but maybe that's one for another video. Give it some relief. If you drill it down, bring it back up, let the debris, give that a flick, let the debris there. If that's absolutely clogged up with debris and you go to shove it in there again, it's pretty much a pointless exercise. You've got to have those flutes, the flutes clear, otherwise it's just not going to drill. That's when you just end up with a black tip and everything just goes black because you're just burning the wood. Just take the time to, it will be hot, so just watch it with your finger. I just find if you just flick it like that, the bits come out of it, and then you're right to go for your next plunge and then clear it out again. Make sure that the cleaner and straighter and better you get that, the whole thing is going to join together. The stronger it's going to be. Little bits of attention to detail of things like that, getting that nice and square, nice and straight, everything lined up. In the end, when the whole structure is all one, you can't go wrong. Again, that's nice and neat. We're going to put the screw in first, follow that rule. Usually you can get like these drills that's got both. You can put that drill bit in here and you only need the one drill, cordless drill. You can pick them up real cheap these days, you really can. The reason why I just put one and then the other is because sometimes when you screw it in, this can move left and right. Just watch out for that. We haven't really drilled down fully deep enough then. I've only actually gone the length of that bit of drill, as you can see. All I've done is drilled from there to there with that in the place, not lifted this off and then re-drilled it. So therefore I know that much there is solid pine at the end that's going to puncture itself into. So I think the wood should be able to handle it, and any longer than that, you go too long right into the solid wood, yes, you then got a good chance you're going to see a split start to happen on the wood, and it's just going to weaken the job. Having a bigger screw doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a stronger bond. You can actually make it weaker. It's a bit like with glue. Sometimes too much glue can make the job weaker. In this case we're fine, it's just pine. It's an easy fit, not a problem. We're only doing 50 mil screws for this circumstance. So that's 19 mil, 50 mil screws. Always go at least double or more for the length of your screw, otherwise it's not going to be strong at all. Like that size screw would be fantastic. I mean, look at the length of that. That's overkill, unnecessary. That's, to go that long for what we're doing. Once we get this board in and screwed in, you'll see what I mean in a minute. That is totally unnecessary to have it that sort of size. But this size here, which is just what 50 mil, 2 inch, is great. So it's slightly more than double. So you've got like the thickness of the material along that shaft, and then you've got all the thread, which is in the threaded area where it's needed. That's about the right size screw for this particular job. And I wouldn't go smaller, most definitely. Unless you're just like putting nothing but a doll's house on it or pillows, and that's all you're going to stick on there, wouldn't matter, but at least double. If that's 3/4 inch there, 3/4 inch again, or slightly more, like the length again, just add another 10%, 10 to 15% longer, tends to see you with the right size bit for whatever it is that you're doing. Right, so we've done that half. We don't really need this stand anymore because we know bits of wood are the same. We've cut that. I think I showed that before in the other bit of video. Again, there's debris on that. When you get rid of it, again, I didn't double check that. There was a little bit of debris there. The dried up paint. Same with that one, just double check that that is smooth, which it is. I'm going to push that over. Push that against there just to make it. Now that's a flush side, flush side. Now hang on a minute. One of these sides, here it is over here. I almost jumped the gun there. This is our top surface here because this piece was too big. So, because this is the larger, obviously there's two sizes of wood there, but that's alright as long as we keep one surface the same. It's not going to matter in this case, which of course is that side there. So we're going to make sure that we get that the same. Right, I know that ends right. If you end up pre-drilling things and you mix them up, get a pencil, mark on the inside like A there, so that you can, if things get mucked about, then you can always bring it back together again to the right one, because you'll find that, like in this case, you can see it, but I haven't really drilled that. Like one's on a slight angle to the other, it's not perfectly the centre, doesn't matter. I know that it marries up with this piece of wood because this is where I drilled it off. Drilled it. Is that a word? Yeah, now. That should sit on there. Drill those two. A couple of 50mm screws. In the end, that's probably sometimes the most expensive expense to put something together is the fittings and the. Something is your fittings, your nuts. They can really add up. And now, never overdo it, especially with timber. Once I've got that level, that's it. Just stop. Like, there's no point winding it in harder, like ripping it in. All you're doing is you're tearing the fibres of the wood inside the timber and you're ripping it. You can hear it crack, and then what it is you're building just falls apart. Do that. You want it just till it's firm, and that's it. I think if you watch my video on how to change a leaking tap, same principle. And that principle applies to a lot of things. You want just that right tension and no more. Again, checking my face is correct. That's the side we want. It's all neat. Check it across there. That's all neat. That's neat. That slipped down a bit too quick there, but it doesn't matter. Just so they're different sizes. I think I've got two different sizes with there, but as I said, this isn't. Gravity wins. It's not going to matter because we've got one plain face. It's fairly neat. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect at this stage. We'll also get it straight on the wall. So there's one down. Now we want to make sure that we leave the longer ones. I'm just checking which is the best face. Obviously the one on the inside underneath doesn't matter, you'll never see it, but one of the faces of the shelf we're going to see. One face, well in this case we will, but I was going to show in the end how there's a great way, cost effective, you can actually make this set of shelves match anything in the room just by putting a front strip panel. But you pretty much get the idea, I don't even really need to demonstrate it. If you wanted to have that nice Tasmanian oak lined, really bright white modern grain look with lacquer, you could just get a thin bit of it at that size and just stick it to the front, screw it in from behind. I'd actually just screw it in because then you can unscrew it and you can change it. But if you want like a nice different front with a pattern in it or anything you like, you can always take that panel off and on because that's all that you see is the front panel. That's it. So you can. So this junky, rubbishy wood, nice and cheap, doesn't matter. You could spend a lot less money just dressing up the front bit. If you've got furniture in the room that's a certain, like maybe it's black wood or something, get some strips of black wood, stick it to the front of the shelves, and instantly it can look fantastic and match the rest of the room. And on a budget, once again. Where's my short stick? I'm just going to keep going, do the rest of this. We'll probably high speed this up. You get the idea. Unless I want to keep talking, we might want to edit it a bit. For a set of shelves, just trust me, just recycled radiata pine's a good one, light red Moranti if you want, is all you need. rub, clean that up to the other end, and this is the last one. That's that size. Want 2 of those, goes with that. There we go with that. Hopefully when you go to the shops, all of yours will be the same size piece of wood. And like I said, it can be done even if you can just grab some bits of timber from off your mates, or around down the back of the yard, or go pull someone else's fence apart, who knows. Just with this one, obviously, like in this situation, I have the opportunity to make a mess here, because if I stick that on too much, I'm exaggerating it, but too much of an angle like that as I go to drill it down. So just because it's the first one, because as you notice the height there's not quite right. If I had like something else I could just jack that up with, would be better, but it doesn't matter as long as I feel it with my fingers. I've got it flush and neat there, and just pay attention to that. I was like, that looks right to me. I don't need to get out of square. It just, if it looks right, close one eye, look down it looks neat to me. Fingers, slide it up, look it down. As I said, there should be less wobble this time because we've done the other side and this is now sitting more parallel, so it should be easier to get the second one correct. In this circumstance, just be careful when I just pulled that out just then. Careful I don't accidentally spin that around, because it will change the position of those holes, because they're all just, because I've just winged it. As long as we keep that the same way around that I originally drilled it, it'll fit in. If you spin it around all of a sudden, it could be like a millifraction out one side, millifraction the other, and then you go to screw it on, the whole piece of wood looks twisted. And then it just looks tacky. And even though for a little bit of care, can make even just a little cheap ass job look okay. You don't have to be a tradesman, you don't have to wait for a tradesman, you don't need a husband, you can do it yourself. This is the best way to go. Like I said, as we know, there's paint all around everywhere there, ingrained, lock, stock and barrel. In the end we can just go over the top and give it another coat when it's in one piece, but we can worry about that at the end. Just better to have it. I'll have to go back to the feet now. See, this is so easy to do, you can even do it in barefoot. I don't know how interesting or boring the whole aspect of it is, but I'll dig over here. Use it upside down. You can just get a cheap spirit level, you don't need an expensive one. This one is a little pricey, but it's meant for tiling. It's a cheap one, I'll do it as long as you stick to the same one. That way, if it is slightly inaccurate, it actually doesn't matter too much as long as it's consistent with what you do. It's another thing that any of these sort of corners, that sort of thing. You'll find that when you do skirting and whatnot, that's another video to do. How to do old school skirting. I might do a video on that one. It's the fellow that taught me real old school, he's now passed away. Died of asbestosis, but he was a brilliant tradesman, and he taught me all the real old ways, how they used to do it back in the old day when they used to build stuff before they used to rush them to death. Like today, when they knock up a house, they literally just smash it together like so quick. And you never make for a good house when it's been made too fast. You need time to dry, time to set, especially a house pad. If you want to make a really, really good home, lay your pad and leave it for 2 years. Don't build your house on it for at least 2 years. Give it 2 full seasons, even sitting out in the sun and everything, and let it settle. Then build your house on it. A lot of people who know about building will nod their head to that, and yeah, it's dead right. If you can, most people can't afford to wait. But if you could, that would be the ultimate build. So when you're coming out, just a little bit of the way, I don't have to pencil all the way out.
it shouldn't matter because I do plan on making shelves come around the corner here in the end, so later on, so I might just pencil it out anyway. Because once we've got it into the corner, it's easy just to keep joining these shelves on. You can just extend them as far as you want. Just do one bit at a time. Just that. Just sliding it off through to that corner there from that bit. Now just again, just checking with the bubble level. I think I've been through how to check bubble levels on my concrete retaining wall video. You can watch that, learn all about spirit levels and how they work. Okay, we've gotten to the stage where we've done our rectangular dudes, and I haven't drilled these ones. I drilled the other three just prematurely just to save a bit of time. It's pretty obvious. You pick your side. That's what we'll do. We'll do one now. You just work out which one you definitely want to be your upper side. Looking, just sighting down at that straight there. Looking on that side, that's got a slight bulge that way, so I really would rather that the curve was upwards and the curvy bit at the back. It's more forgiving. This bit's straighter. I'd rather that was the front. So I want this as the top. Just made the decision by looking at it. So we want it on this side and this side, and nowhere else. Not hard to do. I want it out this first. I'm going to put 3 screws along here. 2 you could get away with if it's not getting a lot of weight on your shelves, or it's a bit smaller. You could probably just go like one there at the 2/3 mark and the 2/3 mark. But we want 3 because I want these to be really strong, because I don't know what I'm going to put up there, but it's going to add up to a fair bit of weight. So the best you can do is have the drill hard up alongside, just neatly straight up and down, and just guess the centre. It's pretty obvious. If it looks right, it is right. I'll go there. That'll do. What I've just done in putting that there, also you'll know that the 2 screws that we did before, they'll run either side of that screw hole, so this actually increases the strength of it. Spin it around. We want to do one for that side. Again, just guess it. Flat against there. About the middle, that looks good. It doesn't matter, because I'll tell you what happens afterwards. And again, I'm going to put one in the middle. I'm not even going to measure it. Again, it does not matter, as long as it looks good. Then if it looks good to you, measure it if you're melancholy about it and you want it absolutely perfect, then measure it. Put a pencil mark and do it. I just take a guess. I reckon about there looks right to me. That way you can't say that something doesn't look good or doesn't look right, because if it looks good and looks right looking at it, then it probably is. So which was our side again? That's our side that way, and that's our back bit, isn't it? Just double check it. Yeah, there's our curve. That's a bit at the back. Just going to quickly do it again. Hard up alongside, parallel centre. Spin it around, just do that one. Same again. Hard up alongside. Just careful you don't dig in that way a little bit too much. It's quite easy to do that here because the drill has got a bit of that angle on it, and it's quite easy to sometimes go on a bit too much. So just calm down, straight at the side there, up and down, get you laughing. Again, I'm not even going to measure it. I'm just going to guess. I'm just sort of looking down and just using peripheral vision just to add those 2 screws I just made. I reckon about there. That looks right to me. That'll do. So I can guess. The closer in you get a hole like that, the easier it is to guess again. 3 would probably be enough. You'd be surprised how strong that is. But just for the fun of the video, I've got plenty of these wall plugs. What the heck? Just to make it super strong, I'm going to stick 2 between that. I can just know that that's a little bit too much that way. About there. Again, no measuring, just get on with it. Try and make the job quick, easy, cheap. There's the middle of that one, so I'm just sighting there, but just use your peripheral vision to sort of guess that. About there. That'll do. Now the reason why it doesn't matter if that's absolutely perfect to me, we can dress it up later. It looks kind of even, so that'll do. You got other things to do in life, get on with it. So we want that one that way around. Where are we? So we're that way. What we now do is we get yourself some nails. Just doesn't matter. The thicker the nail, the better, because as long as it fits the hole. I've got some galvanised nails that don't cost next to nothing. You can keep reusing the same set of nails. It doesn't matter. Now we need a hammer. If it doesn't quite fit, we'll get a bigger hammer. So I've got my fancy tool belt here. That'll do. Real expensive equipment to do this job, isn't it? I guess the idea is that you don't have to have fancy equipment. You can get it done against the wall. I've already rubbed up the back corner of the piece to get it to fit in.
fits quite well. I'm going to put that one in there, stick it in there. I probably could have pre-put the nails in the holes before I do this, before I came up here and levelled it off. That might be a bit easier. Now the one in the corner there I can't get at both. Now this one's crucial, I'm going to make sure I get that dead level. And then in there. Now this outer one is the most important one to me in order to have this level up and down that way. So I'm going to hit that one first. Just double check it, it's good there, it's good in that corner. I'm just pushing against it, checking it up against the pencil line, which we won't see in the end because the shelf goes on the top. That's all we need. Boom, boom, you, and you. I'm just going to pull that one out, stick it in that way because I couldn't get to it because the nail was in the way. And that's it. Actually, I've hammered in them quite good. Right, and those markings now govern where those holes go. That's why it didn't matter. I didn't need to measure those things. They're just an educated guess is good enough. Measure them if you want. But I just find it quicker just to do that. And just sort of... Sometimes when you jump up, you might have imperfections in the walls, and you put your tools down, and you come back up again, and you actually end up thumping on the wrong spot. So often I just leave the tools for a minute and just circle the right ones. And I've drilled walls before that have got really all knotty effects in it, and you don't see it. Now you might notice that this is the no-go zone because we've got a power point down below. But this is an external wall, so there's a cavity behind this, so there's dual layers, so more than likely they don't want to wall chase a wall if they don't have to. They could just drop the cable straight down at the bottom and they can run it through the wall. I doubt there's actually any cable running up and down there. So I'm going to take the risk. I'm just going to risk it and just see what happens. And the way we will know that if I drill into the actual power cable, if we run the actual drill off that power point, if the drill suddenly stops, then we know that we've... And if you hear this bang, and this suddenly stops, and all the lights and everything goes out, luckily the cameras are on batteries and they'll work, then we'll know that we've hit the power cable. But if it was an internal wall, then I would pretty much be sure that there's a cable somewhere there, and I wouldn't do it. I just like, you could put a dummy screw there or don't have it at all, just skip and jump, make sure that you put your screws either side of that. But we're going to risk it anyway, so we'll find out. Yeah, it's on the hammer setting, it is. One of those and those. Clearly there isn't a cable there because otherwise that wouldn't have worked. I'm just blowing it through. I'm not going to worry about the vacuum cleaner at this stage because I heard it go through the second cavity, and I know that any dust in that will just fall straight down inside the brick. This is probably too long a wall plug. We could have got away with a bit shorter one, but who cares? So I've got plenty of them to smack them in. I'm just going to keep my thumb under it a little bit just to keep it steady. Usually when you first hit them, if you don't hit them on the square angle, you'll bend the things and you make a mess of it, and it's really annoying. So often I just keep it supported underneath and give it a tap. When you get close to your actual hand, obviously get it out of the way. And we need that piece of wood. So we're pretty close with a little bit left over. Where's that chunk of wood gone? Here we are. Because when you make these bits, when you cut that, obviously you've got little bits left over. You just go on that one. Something go on edge. You hear here's the sound. You know, that's smooth. That's excellent. They're so strong. They're really strong. They're good wall plugs, good quality. It makes a difference. Don't go for your cheapies. Get the ones with the chamfered ends. The ones you can feel a little bit more pliable. Like I said, put the rest up. We don't need a measuring tape. Don't need you just yet. We can just go ahead and just drill all the holes, vacuum out at once, put all the wall plugs in,
all at once, and these should line up. They have to, because we physically had it there. Like I said, it didn't matter what I drill those holes, because you can't mess up, because you've tapped it in with the nail exactly where they're going to be. If you get these right, so that'll hold up an ancient old wooden television set. This will. It should be quite strong. Always just start off slow, just to be sure that you don't drift off or hit you. I might actually just, so if I keep bumping it with the front of the chuck, with the gripping of the chuck there, it's going through mashing that. I like a nice neat fit. It doesn't matter, it doesn't affect the strength of it, but I just rather it did go through. I'm just going to back that off just a little bit. It just happened to be the size of that internal wall brick where the cavities are inside it. I think that much sticking out just would be more suitable. Right on the nail hole. Might get the vacuum cleaner to suck them up at once. Now to do that, I was basically using the wall to keep it parallel, so you know you got it right. I had a grip there, but I just had my finger to the wall. As long as I run that like that, you can't go wrong. Because that is awkward to get at. You can't sort of twist your body like it's a bit dangerous, but just, yeah, use the wall to your advantage. Things will vary because it just depends on whether you happen to get it between the mortar. What can happen is it is possible, because you've got internal wall bricks, sometimes when the bricklayers are bricklaying, they can be a bit lazy and there's not a lot of cement's gone between the two bricks, and there's a sort of a cavity between two bricks. Well, they've slopped a bit of cement and joined it across, but there's sort of a hole there. The plaster and the render has gone over the top, but there's no real cement behind that. There's no mortar like between the bricks. And you could just happen to get one of those unlucky spots where if you've gone through that and all there really is just render and a bit of plaster that's actually holding that in there, and you haven't got the strength that you think that you do. You'll know by the colour. You can sort of, if you know what the colour of the internal wall brick is, normally it's that dark sort of the ochre colour, that clay sort of colour, and you've got traces of that dust in the drill that you've done, then you know you're fine. You can actually, sometimes you can see it, get a torch, you can look down there, you can see the layer of the render. But that can make for a weak joint, especially if you've got something really heavy that you happen to be putting on, like a big heavy picture frame, or if you're putting like a flat screen TV on one of them wall brackets and you want to be able to swing it out. That's a lot of weight hanging off there. You want to make sure those anchorage points are good. So just check that if you've all you've got is white powder that's coming out of it and there's just no mortar there, just wonder whether there's actually a stronger joint as you think it is. As I pull that out, it vibrates a little bit anyway, which is why you need to knock off that 10% off each side of your choice of drill bit. It just happens. It's always that hole, I guarantee, is a bigger diameter than what the end of that is. It just always works that way. Like I said, the stronger and more harder your brick is, the more chance of getting a neat hole, but most of the time it isn't. So you want to definitely go less, and that's the key. There's a lot of people mess up as they make they just use a little cheaper wall plugs. Just going the green one, making the hole too large, and it seems like it's screwed in at the time, but realistically there's not a lot of sideways pressure there, because what we're doing is putting the wall plug in, you're literally squeezing it outwards with the screw going into it, which is why the thicker screw holds better. You've increased that and you've really squeezed it hard. The 6 gauge not as deep.
many damage there yet. Just on the front. Vacuum cleaner, where'd that go? Doesn't matter, I'll just blow it. Are we still recording?
Yes, we are.
Let us keep going. Do the old blow thing. Let's get that. That'll do. Close your eyes. A long straw would be better. Don't know whether there is one. That'll do. Make sure you get that out of there. There we go. Because if you leave all that grit and everything there, it causes it to jam up. And then if it jams up, and then you got half of it sticking out, and somebody's going to get the pliers out and pull it back out, and then it ends up ripping all the plaster. It just makes a right mess. So if you can avoid that, just get it right the first time. Take the time, get the vacuum cleaner if you want to. I would advise that, ladies. Just get the vacuum cleaner and actually drill it, and then have it, while you drill it, suck it up at the time. It's a little on the loose side. I did allow that to rattle a bit too much. It'll be fine, because we got, as I said, an overkill amount. To have 5 across here really is a bit of an overkill. We could have gotten away with 3. 3 or 4 would have been plenty. I'm not too worried about using the block, because if I've dented a bit, it's going to be behind that piece of wood, and I don't think it's, but we'll do it out of habit, shall we? Close piece of wood. Okay. That's a bit short of that one, doesn't matter. Put it through anyway, and even if the screw if it comes out the other far end, it's not going to make any difference, but you've only got so much clamp there. But it's right in the corner, the most strongest point, and this whole shelf is right here in this corner, so it's not going anywhere. Probably can get away with it. I'm not going to put one of these short ones in that bit of corner too. And here, but I'm going to put on the outside edge, which requires the most amount of strength. I'll stick one of the longer ones on there. Got it. Which one were we? Obviously the one on the front. All this dust is giving me an itchy nose, isn't it? I think in half my videos I'm itching my nose. I don't go to Australia, everything's itchy. Yeah, you're kind of right. You see that spot here, it's definitely the right one. I can check it by having it just below it. Boom, boom, boom. Looks good. And then I can just prematurely put the screws. And as I said, because we've got so many screws, I've got a lot more of these. I think it's 8 gauge, no, the other one's 8 gauge. I'm pretty much 6 gauge, 50 mil. I've got heaps of them. I've got another whole container of it. There's plenty of these. It'll be enough. Not that much sticking out. If it's past double, I think we'll be fine. But yeah, if you can do exactly this technique, if we were to increase the size, I mean the hole that we've just drilled in that wall will take a great big screw like that. I mean that's just huge. You put that in there with that wall plug, crikey, you could put an engine block on that shelf. It'll hold it easy. It's really got that nice tight fit on the wall plug itself. Really the key thing is just don't go in too big. The masonry bit, steady on the hand. If it starts to vibrate too much, you might have like weak plaster or something, and you've actually got to go smaller again. You might find even to get those blue ones in, even a smaller masonry bit than what I've just used. If you find that your plaster and your render is just turning to powder, and the holes just looking a lot bigger than what the drill bit is actually is. I'll just like a lesson more while I do it. There you go. I don't want them sticking out too much just yet. Well, they can on that face, but not on the side. I need to be able to move it up and down. Back out. Yeah, the other ones are sticking out a little bit. I don't mind to put that way, but I need to be able to move that up and down so I'm not having them sticking out. So, let's find me just one. We're going to shove it in the corner. outer one. If you have two of these, you'll love them. See if I can let go of that now. That was the awkward bit. We've had someone else to hold it for you. So don't let it started to bounce, stop. Change what you're doing. See, it's not too tight, don't want to rip into it, just want to make it nice and firm.
Okay, cut.
Yep. Okay, that's one here. Again, just till it's flush, don't want to overdo it. If you're wanting that one in by hand, it's going to be a killer on the wrist. Having a cordless something like this would be great. But if you've got a variable speed in the drill, that one drill can actually do the lot. You can pick up for $30 a drill that's got hammer facility, variable speed in the trigger, forward and reverse, and you can get these bits and just put them in here. It's a lot quicker for me just to have each one in a separate drill so I can just like quickly do it. But you know, on minimal amount of money for just a $30 drill, you can do it. You don't have to invest in something ridiculous. When if it does one set of shelves, you basically pay for itself rather than cost of getting someone in to do it for you. Done. One in the corner there. Done. That'll just sit there for now. Obviously, and we're just going to repeat that exactly what I just did. We'll high speed that one and just whack the other four up. Join the two together, then we'll actually then put the braces on after that to give the weight. Then we'll put the final shelves in, and yeah, let's get on with it. Just a quick add-in, because we're only going to see in the actual job at the front strip, which was I bought some stuff that already had like your Laminex edging already on it. But the three sides are exposed, and even though we're not really going to see them, I want to block it off from any moisture that could possibly get in here. The trouble with chipboard, as soon as it gets wet, it's finished. It's like, that's it. You never ever want to get water inside your chipboard. It may dry out, it might look okay at the time, but after months go by, you suddenly wonder why the things are swelling up and falling apart. There is no going back, and it just never ever get moisture inside on chipboard. I'm not worried about spilling the paint over the edge or masking it. There's no need. I just get a wet cloth, wipe it up the side, and you're done. Seal that up. One coat's probably enough. As I said, if it was near a bathroom or in the kitchen, something like that, I definitely would go a lot more effort to seal that up a bit better. I do have some fancy clamps I could have put this in, but I just wanted to show you that you don't need to have a bunch of tools to do this job. You just honestly, with absolute budget, you can put shelves up as strong as you like. many as you want, and you don't need to invest in tools that you feel that you're not really going to use again. If you're not really, tradesman like that sort of thing, but you need a set of shelves up. Probably not totally necessary if you don't want to do this, but I don't like to have to do jobs twice. I just do them once. That's why I make it last long term, so I never have to worry about it again. I tend to find that buying thinners, like the bottle of thinners, can be about $6 or $7 when it's just cheaper just to cut 50 cents brushes and then just ditch them. It works rather than having to waste your time getting thinners and then cleaning out the brushes. And unless you've got a really good quality brush and you're painting up a room and you want to use that brush again and again, some paint brushes can cost a lot of money, but they do a good finish, and you don't want to lose that. Okay, go your thinners, but in this case we don't need it. It's all right. I'll flip it over in a second. Let's get the wet cloth. Dip it in the water. Nothing major. So I'm not too fussed about this looking good or not. Just as long as it's sealed, you're not going to see it. Obviously, your panel will be whatever size is your job. You might have shelves, you might want little 200mm shelves, 300mm shelves, something like that. So obviously, but I've gone for 450. We want some big shelves. We want to store a lot of stuff. So yeah, that's the size of panel we got. That'll do. And we're at this stage where this is just dried up, as you saw. You just painted those edges. It's more just to keep the moisture out. That's the whole idea. The idea of this, like that sort of thing, is you could also even put a fish tank on these things. This could be so strong that even if like a fish tank leaked and water ran down the back, your shelves are fine. That's why just plan ahead that there's nothing that you can't do. Then it always pays to do it. Because once you've already assembled it, it's a bit too late to change anything. This is the part where basically it gets us away with only using one bracket. I've just grabbed a clamp here. If you don't have any clamps and you don't want to start spending extra money, just have a friend of yours come around and give you a hand and just hold the thing. That's all you really need to do. It's because I'm on my own. I'm just going to put that in there, and that's just going to give us that back corner. This is the crucial bit first, and we want to make sure that this is lined up first. We'll do the top bit second. There's a reason for that. Because we want this to line, because you've got to find that these aren't exactly square. They're just stuck to the wall at the moment, but they're not square yet. But this piece of wood is square, so we're going to go off that. So we need to just, the two screws I'm going to put just in here is more temporary than it is actually strength, because in the end I'm going to put 2 bolts. They're going to go through there and through there. You won't see them, they're tucked underneath the shelf, and that's going to make the shelf extremely strong. But we need to hold it just together in the meantime while we finish it. We can always just get in there with a drill later and then just slip those bolts in, it's no big deal. So I'm going to put two holes just here and here, roughly there. To do that, I'm going to quickly pre-drill here first, because what I don't want to do is I don't really want to start drilling the screws all the way through. So I've grabbed a couple of some 30mm screws, because that's a 16mm board, 19mm timber, so that means that's not going to go all the way through. That's our bottom, that's our front. I want to know where it is in the middle. Again, I just use an actual piece of wood. About there is fine. As I said, in the end you're not going to see it. That's going to prove to me that that's about the centre. That way you can do the stick. Out there, doesn't really matter. About there. It has to be countersunk because the screw needs to be flush, because there's timber going, the next shelf is going to go over the top of that. Now, just a quick little tip on the side here. These aren't cheap. For a good one of these anyway, they're not cheap. They're going to cost a few bob, and it's justified to me as a tradesman, but yourself, you just want to knock out some shelves once. You don't really want to be wasting money buying tools that you just don't need. You can get away with not having this just by a simple little pack of drill bits, just a cheap set. Hang on a second, I'll grab another drill bit to show you an example. Here we are. You can just use a regular drill bit, drill through where you want it. It's a bit more time consuming because you've got to swap it over, or unless you've got a second drill if you're that lucky. But if you've only got the one drill, which is all you need, swap it over for that, and then that there is basically the same as that. I don't know if you can see that. You can see what I mean. So all you really need, I'll actually show it to you. What the heck? Let's do it. Is that you can just very quickly, just give a quick pulse. Once you've done that first, that size drill bit first, and just give it a quick rub. The variable speed is great for this because you don't want to go too deep. And just give it a rub with the tip of one of those, and that will give you your countersunk part. Okay, so you don't need to go wasting more money on that if you don't want to.
but it is quicker to have one of these because it does speed up everything. Now, as I said, I don't want to go all the way through, so all I'm going to do, I did get that very close, didn't I, to the edge. Back one first, I'm just going to give it a quick press. You saw the bit of material come out of it, you know it's done. This is why having 4 arms is great, means that stays on there. I'm going to make sure that I push that up, and that is flush. All I'm doing is sticking my thumb on it and just feeling it across there that, yep, she's flush. If it feels flush, it is. If it looks right, it probably is right. And just give it a quick mark, you out the way, and then I'm going to give that a little bit of tapping in, bit of relief, because it is pine and we don't want it to split. You could probably, if you're in a hurry, you could get away with just boring that straight in there and not actually pre-drill that bit because it's only a short screw. But I would rather show it to you how it's done properly. Next bit, actually no, we'll put the 2 screws in. We can always take them back out again. That'll help hold it in place. Edging at the front. Now because I've got support here, I'm going to go the front one first. Get that in there. And that will line. And that's flush. Flush. Once you've done that, then top one's easy because you can see it. You stand front on, you can see down the front. What I'm going to do is I'll do the back one first because I said the shelf is not level yet. The way we're going to check it is the other piece of wood, which is for the other side, is the same thickness as what the shelf is going to be, which is 16 mil. So I'm going to drop that on the top of that. See there we go, we want that flush. Another way of doing this, so you haven't got that raw edge up the top, but in this case it's up over the top of the shelf, really up high. We're putting storage stuff on here, we're never going to see it, and I really just don't care. And it's cheaper for me to buy panels individually, but if you don't want that, you want a nice smooth flat face all the way across, then you could, we could have cut this at the same distance, just from there to there, and then actually had one big long shelf go all the way across whatever size shelf you're building. But in this case, this is about over 3.1 metres long, so I think about 3.6 metres long. Anyway, so we don't want that to be that. Okay, so I want that there. That's down like that. I'm going to do the back one first because I can see it. I can see with my eyes across it's about there. That'll do, like I said, in the end you don't see them anyway. I'm just going to go through, just mark it. I'm not going all the way through with it. I'm going to pull this down so that that's flush level there. I'm just looking through, just glance it through at the front, make sure it's between those 2 bits of, the 2 screws that are at the front. And just like feel it go through to the other side. Because what I'll then do, I'm going to quickly take this back off again. Get rid of that. And I'm just going to then now do my countersink or use your other drill bit if that's what works out cheaper for you. That was good. Got hold. These Milwaukees are notorious for that, for undoing themselves and letting the drill bit drop out. I don't know why that is, but they tend to do that a lot. My Makita one didn't do it. And then the same again. Just a little bit of relief so we don't split the wood. I don't know if you can tell, but like one screw there is slightly higher than that one. Like I said, it doesn't matter, you're not going to see it. The only idea is just do it quickly, get it done, because I'm sure you'd rather be sitting down having a cup of coffee anyway than doing this. So that's ready to go. So again, I'll start from the front. Just get that into there that much so it holds itself. Press it underneath, make sure it's flush. Talk funny because you've got a screw in your mouth. That's that. Another couple of 30mm screws. So this is just temporary anyway. And I'm going to bring that down so that that's flush. And I'm just going to close one eye and just sight it, or I didn't even just feel it, just make sure that that is flush there and there's nothing protruding and sticking out.
Ta-da! Take that bit away because that's the bit for the other side. And that our handy clamp, any cheap nasty clamp will do the job. You don't have to get anything fancy for that. And we're just going to do exactly the same on the other side. Now, as you can see there is a bit of a gap formed at the back there. That'll actually be because the wall itself is not straight. Usually when plaster up, a wall might look flat and straight, often they are not. You get a dead straight edge and hold it up. The wall is often wavy, and obviously the wall is that way because this is definitely square. But it won't matter, you're not going to see it. There's going to be bracket over that and everything, and it won't even be seen anyway. But if it's a bother to you, then you can then plane the wood and correct it to fit the wall, or vice versa. You can get a bit of putty or something like that, slot it in with your finger, just rub it in there, be gone. That's an easy fix and not a big deal. I'm not going to replaster the whole wall for the sake of that. Again, just clamp that up. That's a little holdy bracket. That's the proper technical term, is holdy bracket. Holdy bracket, dude. Some of the little quick grip ones that you can get might be a bit handier. You just squeeze them and they just go together. That saves you from mucking around. I've had this G clamp for about a good 30 odd years and it's kind of sentimental. And then basically same again. Double check it. You don't want to mess this up, otherwise you buy more panels. The tricky part about wood is once you've drilled it, that's it, you're done. Double check. There's my good edge. That's my front. It doesn't really matter if I go that way or that way. That's irrelevant. But I'll cross this bottom edge here. Again, I'll use that. There's our other drill. Hang it off the edge. Somewhere about there. Middle, that's fine. And somewhere over here. That's about the middle. That'll do. Same again. I don't really re-show you this, it's just a deja vu of the other side. I'm going to go for the back one first. So that's because the bits of timber are two different sizes. But that's okay. We'll go off the back. Hang on, let's double check that. Remember, I'll be using scrap wood, and remember the two bits of timber were slightly different sizes, which are shown here. Where do I go from? Where it is there is fine. Just going to give it a mark, and again with my thumb, I'm just going to squeeze that shelf because it's sort of hanging down at the moment. There's no support there yet. We haven't put the brackets on yet. Just give it a quick mark. I'll just do this and we'll probably just high speed this bit because it's kind of easy. Righty, I didn't show you doing this because you've seen it before. This is just a repeat of those. But the interesting part, I thought, before I start high speeding anything, is just take note of what I was saying about
it being different possibly and to do things individually, and it is. The top one is about 2 millimeters fractionally bigger on that top bit than it is on the bottom bit. Though to the eye standing back it looks perfectly even, it isn't. And so I did this one first, obviously. I set that one in the back. That was the first one you saw me mark. And I even measured this one separately by doing the same thing, by just pressing that in there, bringing it up there and putting a marker on that. Now, that actually goes that way around. I know that because I wrote it down on the top bit. There's a panel going in there, so you're not going to see it anyway. You can write whatever you like, but it does pay when you do cut things that are set to a certain spot. Just quickly scribble. I could have written on the back there, because you know it'll go against that part of the wood. You'll never see it. But do that, because like, what if the phone rings or the doorbell goes off and suddenly you put the bit of wood down, you walk away and you come back and it's like, uh-oh, which one went where? You know, it saves you mucking around. You can write something like that and walk away from the job, and you can always get to it. This should fit just perfectly actually if I've done it right. I haven't screwed it in. It should actually just be a nice wedge fit. Look at that! Not even the screw, that's how good you can get it to fit. I haven't even measured it, I don't care what the distance is, it is what it is. That front and back and that's just fitting there beautifully, and I know that's snug as a bug in a rug all the way through, no gaps, and it's all probably got enough strength on it, or even just sitting there that, oh yeah, I can hold the measuring tape, go. Now to do the top one, I remember that bit looks a bit tacky with those holes. That looks a little bit better. So as I said, this is recycled timber I'm using here. So you just quickly pop up in there. I think we'll have it. I don't like that little crack look. That looks a bit better. It's not a very good paint job. As I said, it's a touch-up job later. As long as I've got all the end grain bits already painted. So I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to squeeze that, and you can see it. It's just in there by a millimetre. Like I said, don't go too deep. So then that's just resting on there. Sometimes if you've got a long piece of wood and you're walking away to go outside to cut it, you could just use like a regular cheap handsaw. A good way to just describe yourself as to which side of the line to cut on. I need to cut the waste away from that side of the line. We need this section here. So the carpenter's method is to have a line and then drew 3 little marks like that. That symbol there, have you zoomed in on that one, have you? Jigs. I can just bring it to you.
How's this?
Yeah. So all I've done is basically I've just drawn my lines by rubbing on there, getting the size, and I just quickly scratch those 3 lines on that side, and that indicates that they do that in carpentry workshop, because sometimes when you've got a team of people, like one guy will do the marking and he hands it to another guy and the other guy does the cutting. If the other guy receives the bit of wood, he knows that he's going to get his cut mark, he's going to get his saw and put it on that side of the line. That's your waste side of the line. And it also means I can just now throw the wood over there, so we're going to just have a cup of tea, pick it up later on, and I know exactly where we're at with this. So that's the one that's at the back, which obviously I did that way, so I'm going to mark it. So that's the back piece. You can write whatever you like, you can put a symbol or something. I'll then just put like an arrow, that it's going backwards, and obviously top, back, top, yeah, arrow cut. So that's that one. And this one, like that side a little bit better. That side's a bit more square. This side's kind of rough and tacky, so I'm going to get rid of that side, and I'm going to keep that side. Again, I want to put that, let's rest that on there for a second about where it goes. Right there. So I'm going to get as close to that top edge as I can, because you want to really keep it parallel. Even just going slightly down too deep, as I said, puts it on a diagonal and it'll give you a false reading. So I'm just going to hold that there. That'll do. Let's give it a good mark. There's our mark. Again, just so I know, that bit there. So I know that's the waist side. That's obviously the bit down. So that's where the mark is, and the top, front, and then I'll put an arrow again to the back, so that the arrows go the same direction. As I said, you can walk away with a cup of tea, you can come back later, and you know you're not going to go wrong. So then after that, I might as well just high speed this, so I'm just going to quickly screw all that together. So that's just wedged in there for now, but the beautiful part is though, now that I've got that wedged in there, I can feel that it's nice and flush. I could even put that bracket on there now, but I'll hang on to a minute. I'll just make sure keep the bracket out of the way because there's no pressure on this yet. There's actually quite a lot of strength actually even without the brackets yet. It's quite strong. Anyway, I'm just going to use this wood here to make sure that these are flush. Tap that. Yeah, and then what I'm then going to do, not worry about screws, I'm just going to get the little bolts. I'm going to put a bolt right through and a bolt right through there because I want it super strong. I could actually, if I wanted to, if you didn't want to like spend the money on bolts, if you haven't got heavy stuff on, you could then just put a couple of screws on the inside tucked in there. You're not going to see it, and just screw it in then through to that. And because it's actually a larger area through there, in fact, let's do that. We're not going to put bolts through it. I reckon we just we'll set by example that we can still make this a super strong shelf and not worry about the bolts. I just got plenty in stock. I've got heaps of bolts lying around, so I thought I'd throw them through there. No, let's not worry about that. Let's keep it simple. Let's just chuck some screws on the inside of that, and that's that put there. I won't do it just yet because I might want to move that out the way. It might be in my way to do the top piece. So I'll go cut that, and I'll put these screws together, and then we'll slip the top one on. We haven't drilled into the wall. Haven't done that yet. We're going to tack it into the wall to make this whole thing super strong. It's going to, well, at least we've got that position correct. That's okay. At least we can then we can drill these through and get our mark points.
Right, just in finishing, I've just slipped the boards in. I did have to trim these back because I didn't use the original 1.2 metres that they come. But if you don't have a circular saw and all that sort of stuff, and you don't want to be spending money in that sort of area, that they come a standard 1.2, so make your shelf 1.2 if you can. The timber comes 1.2, so make it 1.2 if you're able to do it. It's just, we're restricted because we're going between these two walls, which is a really odd figure. And it was a very odd figure. In fact, what we've discovered while I've been doing these boards, just to trim them up and just to set them in there, is the reason why this middle section, all four pieces were a different size, because I say the plasterer has gone thin on the wall. When he's plastered up the wall, he's got it thick here, he's got it thick there. The corners are really good, but the middle is a bit shallow. It's a little bit thin, so there's a bit of a dipping in this wall. You can't obviously see it, but you know it creates a few millimetre gap, and that can then cause a few errors. I have made mistakes. What I should have done was I was lazy, wasn't I? I didn't do this. I should have grabbed a scrap bit of the actual board, put it on there, and when I drilled that through, had my finger and checked it. But I didn't do that, and it's about 0.5 millimetre out, but I don't care because this is just to store stuff. If it was for a client that had to look good, I would have made sure it was prestige. But in this case, we just want to chuck boxes of stuff up and things and whatnot. To fix that, again, it's because of the wall not being correct. It's a bit wavy there. I'll use the plane at the back, and I'll just trim that off, and I'll get that flush. I think we'll worry about doing that in the next video. The idea was just to get these shelves up and show that it can be done cost effectively, very strong and quite practical. And doable for anybody. It's so easy to do. With these brackets, I just quickly slipped that one up. You didn't need to show you how to drill it. We've already been through that. Just the process of screwing this in. This is where if you don't have one of these, it actually can be an advantage just to go for the old-fashioned screwdriver. Because like one time, I think I went through here and I actually put a split in the timber just there. I backed it off a bit, but that thing has the ability to go a little bit too hard, and I've split it. But if you went by hand, you'd never have that problem. Okay, just in screwing these in, I'll give you a tip on it. I'm going to go for the bottom first. Let's get that. Right, what I'm going to do, I'll grab that just to speed things up for you because I want to save you guys time. I'm going to take it in. Don't do it all the way up. This is the trick. Now that that's there, it's a lot easier. It gives you two hands free. I'm going to put the top one up. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever been to the hardware and you see kits of screwdrivers, and they give you like 5 or 6 screwdrivers in a kit and they're all different lengths, this is why. See how like this screwdriver is a bit long, it just fits in there, but sometimes a bit of a shorter screwdriver would be a lot easier to fit it in that case, and that's why they give you different thicknesses, different lengths of screwdrivers, is because of these sort of applications. Okay, another trick, if I wanted to, there is a device like this. Little handle piece. These are beautiful. These little things you can move that around, get out of the way, put that in your drill, and it gives you a 90-degree angle. And it gives you. I can then screw that in with the drill at a 90-degree angle and gets that into real funny awkward spots. But these aren't cheap. I think this was at least $35, $36 or something like that. So you might just have to go for the short, snuffy screwdriver. You're only going to put this in once anyway. So again, I'm not going to do it all the way up. The reason is that the centre one can be a bit tricky because the bar that's in the way here. The reason why they twist it like that is not only for a bit of strength, but not necessarily at all for looks, but so that the screwdriver can actually get down through to that centre screw there, like that. But because we want to be able to get at it more easily, which is why I did not screw it all out, because I can now tip this left and right. So I can move this out the way like that, and then I can put this one in quite easily, most of the way. In fact, I can almost pretty much do it up all the way and start tightening it. And then it's only the last few turns can be a little bit awkward because this bracket will get in the way, but it's not that big a deal in the beginning with that. And now I could go about tightening up all of the rest. Get that up there. Same with the top one. This is a really, I couldn't find, I've got a good snap-on tool screwdriver. I don't know where I put it, but this is just a cheap $2 thing that I have lying around. So you don't need to spend a lot of money to do this. Alright, remove that in. Now we'll get that nice and tight. Yeah, a short stumpy screwdriver will get in there, but it's really hard to turn. The longer the handle of the screwdriver, the easier it is. You've got more torque. In this case, you know, with that sort of still in the way, we've only got a few turns to do. These screws are a little bit undersized. Some 10 gauge would have been better for this bracket, but we actually found out as we were filming this and I was doing it, this thing would have held itself up even without the brackets. It is so strong. Like if I was just putting books on this and only had like a 300mm shelf and that's all, I could go away with not putting brackets in at all because they're braced at the end. Any pulling I do in here is pulling on that back corner, which is all anchored anyway. It's not going anywhere. Now that it's all one piece, when the boards are screwed in, a way to like to get that right is to measure. You've got 42 there, so again 50mm screws would be good. Drill up through there and screw it out from underneath. 1, 2, 3 would then brace this whole bit, and again giving you extremely strong shelf. At the back you can get these little tiny brackets, little metal brackets. They're not expensive. You can slip one in the back underneath and do that. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to screw the front bits in only, because once you put stuff and junk on there, it's not going anywhere anyway. Again, you might have got spotted. You're thinking, hang on, you made a mistake there. You're right, you're not wrong. As I said, these two bits of wood are slightly different sizes because the timber that I used, this is all salvage stuff. I didn't pay anything for it, which was great for us, because who wants to spend the money if you don't have to? It's just for storage and we don't care how it looks. But that's why that's wrong. But if you bought the 42 by 19 pine at the shop, it would be all even anyway and you would not have that issue. Again, I have to correct that because of the wall at the back is incorrect, and I will do that later. But that is basically it. It's not that bad. I reckon it looks alright. You know, for considering cost of price, I must admit, the most expensive thing is about $80 worth of these panels, total up to about $80 for the actual shelves, because they came with the edging at the front. But these are 450 wide, and they're big shelves. You go down to the 300s, would have been a lot less than that. And if you, I mean, these are almost 3.4 metre long shelf. This total area adds up to about 3.1, just fractionally over square metres of storage space that we now have. And as I said, we could have done the same thing, and we could have gone higher, you know, or lower, and actually had a third shelf, same principle, shelves closer together, shelves further back if you're just putting books on it. In fact, if we had 3 shelves, it would be even stronger again, and really I probably wouldn't need the brackets then at all, reducing the cost of the job. White paint, it does look a bit tacky. The screws at the back, there's a few ways you can get away with that. You can get these little plastic tabs that actually stick over the screw and they cover it, and they can make it look dressy. I'm just going to get some of the paint over the top of it, but when we stick boxes and things like that, you're not going to see it anyway. But I was thinking, yeah, we'll do another video. If you subscribe and hit that bell button thing if you want, we're going to do a bit where I'm going to dress up the front of this so that you can then picture this. Like, imagine if you had a bed, you just suddenly bought yourself a new bed, and the bed head that is on it, and it's made out of Mary or you know, black bart or jarrah, doesn't matter what, or Tasmanian oak, and a bit like that. You can then get your shelves to match all your furniture in your room by getting a strip of that size. We're going to go a little fraction bigger at the bottom, but not at the top. I'll show you why. And actually then just glue onto the front, or screw it from behind it, from underneath through. Obviously just the right size screws, but you can probably get away with just gluing it because it's not holding anything, it's just for looks. So then that is all smooth. It'll be a nice timber grain, and you have it all running all the way through. And even if you then changed your furniture, and you suddenly didn't like this jarrah look and you wanted to go for something nice, light and white, like an American oak or something like that, get strips of that. You can unscrew that, put that back on, and it completely changes the look of the room. Also, with this, we're thinking you can do lights. As I was building this, I thought, hang on a minute, we could light up this whole bottom section underneath, you know, with the LEDs and make the wall glow very cost effectively. Like, there's companies like J-Car, they sell this, these LED lights of all different shapes and sizes and kinds. And what you could do is get some panel, I've got an example around here, and stick it up underneath, obviously not like that, but they panel up from underneath and cut some holes in it if you want like little lights up underneath it, or a strip of LED, and stick the panels in there, because you've got this cavity, 42mm cavity in there that you could run the cables all the way through. Because this is actually an external wall, so I could then drill a hole through that, run the wire through the cavity in the wall and run it up into the roof to an actual switch on the wall, flick the switch and suddenly all your wall lights up, and it would look sick. It would look absolutely awesome. Having that down, or put LED strips across underneath there and have it light up that way so you don't even see any of the wires. You could light up in here as well if you wanted to, but usually when you've got stuff here, if you've got ornaments, maybe you want to build a shelf like this because you've got ornaments and things you want to put, you want to light them up. Classic, you don't even need 19mm, just something like 8mm board would be all that you need. You stick that up underneath, some melamine bullets a bit thinner, put the fixture lights to it, all the cabling runs out of there, and to cover up the front, because the board would go there, it would leave you with a raw edge. That's when you then get your other strip of your timber, cap it across the front, never see it, looks fantastic. The world's your oyster, there's nothing you couldn't do. Just with this sort of technique of just using the framework, panels, it is strong, cost effective, that'll last forever. And the other good point is, if you went to say sell the house or you didn't want this anymore, you want to sell the house, you'd actually be better off taking all this down. Remember at the beginning I showed you when I did the wall plug, how I just puttied up over that, paint the wall, you'd never know it was there. If you're going to sell your house, you're actually better off, you know, having nothing there than having the shelves there, because when people come to buy a house, they don't want to be reminded of the stuff that the other owner had. You might be proud of the fact that you made these shelves, but the new buyers might be thinking, well, we don't want that, we've got a big cupboard that we want to put there, and they're kind of in the way. Whereas a plain room, the more empty and plain your house is, a buyer prefers that, because they will bring in their things and their ideas. So you can quickly just unscrew all of that. I could literally dismantle all of this within less than 30 minutes and have it gone. Puttied up over those holes, get the ball plugs, knock them in, smack them over the putty, paint that wall and get out of here, and you can hang on to those materials and build it somewhere else. There's nothing, with here I can also go round the corner. I'm actually thinking of doing this, as I can then continue this shelving around the corner with just one bracket put here. I can then join it to this way, just frame again, exactly the same thing. You don't need a bracket here in the corner, because the whole corner becomes the anchorage. And I can then swing this shelving around the corner and panel it off there. These are great as well, having that, because if you've got books, you've got something to lean it against. Now the next bit of it, I'll screw it up from underneath too. Hang on, there we go, iron that up. I think, slip those screws in. Done. I don't think I can get that line. You can use that 90-degree bit, how about that? That's cheating. You just screw it in by hand if you want. So I'm just going to put the screw underneath, and then I'd say, I have that much faith in the strength of these shelves that I'm going to climb up there and I'm going to lie down on it. I think our editing department is also going to get up there. And we'll even get Clapper. We'll get Clapper up there too. Good on you, Clapper. And that's it. That's pretty much it. What else is there to say? You can do it. It's not that hard. You can do this within a day. You know, obviously there's not much point in giving you the dimensions of what I've done, because it will be different for you in whatever it is that your house is in your situation. And if it is between two walls and it's small enough, you may not need brackets at all, especially if you've gone for 3 tiers of shelves. It's going to be a really strong wall. Like I said, you could just continue this down. I could actually change my mind, even add a 3rd shelf by just taking off the middle section only, replacing these boards with a longer bit, and I can build another lot of shelves all over again without touching the other pieces or changing anything, and add to it as the money comes in the door. As I said, this is about cost effectiveness and simplicity, simple tools, and easy to do. But yeah, we'll do another video on just jazzing this front piece up. I'll have these little bits tidied up there for you. If there's anything that you want to know that I haven't said, or you're having trouble with anything, let me know. Comment. If you've got jobs around your house that you're not sure about and you can't find a video on YouTube that explains things clearly enough, let me know and I will do it. Like I said, this house needs pretty much every possible imagine of things done to it, so we could demonstrate it here. If not, I'll do it at a client's house or whatever. But yeah, let me know. You can obviously then subscribe, and then you'll know when it is that I finish the video. But please, I want your feedback. Let me know if you can relate to me. Then yeah, let me know what you want done, what you want to see, and I'll show you, because I'm having great fun making these videos, and I hope you had a good time watching it. Probably didn't, but at least I've explained anything. That is pretty much it. How do I end it? Just like that. It can be done. Should we get the ladder out and get up on this thing, mate?
I reckon so, dude.
I reckon we can get up here, because I've got full faith in this. I haven't even screwed these things in yet, but I screwed them in underneath, but what the heck, let's get up there and do it anyway.
Oh, far out.
Lie down.
Oh, this feels...
It feels like we're in the Navy. We're going to the bunks in the Navy.
Man, feels like a Klingon ship there, Well,
is
what
it
do you
moving?
reckon, folks? I reckon it's a big thumbs up there, no?
Because look how fat I am. My big fat head, I weighed a ton. But I can't feel this thing moving at all. I've got full faith in it.
Oh, definitely. Same
She's
here,
sweet.
you know. It ain't moving. I can't hear any crackling or anything like that.
No, and as I said, I haven't even screwed these bits into there. And that'll brace it up even stronger once I screw that in under that. Would lock it all together. It could be done, and it can still look good once we put those edgings on the front. Look brilliant. Stick a fish tank up there, but probably won't do that. Oh well, I'm done. What do you reckon?
Oh, I'm done as well too.
You're done.
Oh, good night.
God, it's a tiring video, wasn't it?
Yeah, agreed.